Hi everyone, and welcome to Mystery Esoterica. My name is Braden, and we're going to talk about symbols. I'd originally planned on doing a more in-depth look at the sacred story. However, due to basically due to the fact that it's such a big concept and I don't know how to squeeze it into a small video, I'm forced to reevaluate my strategy. In the meantime, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about symbols. More specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to do a Symbols 101 course. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going over the philosophy of symbols. Because unlike other sites and unlike other channels out there, I want to actually teach you this information instead of just saying, oh, look, this symbol is evil and it means this, and this symbol is evil and it means that. I want to actually teach you the philosophy. And that's important. You have to be able to build a good foundation before you really begin to understand things. And then later on in the second half of the video, together, what we're going to do is we're going to break down, what we're going to do is we're going to build a symbol. Together, you and I are going to build a symbol. And along the way, you get to learn a few symbols, and you also get to learn about how a symbol is built and how to read the sentence that a symbol represents. So, for the philosophy, the ancients took very seriously the idea that man was created in the image of God. And by God, what I mean is the great and all-pervasive creative mind. Here's our little brain. God. And this is built on a very simple idea. A term, well, it's actually an axiom, an old Hermetic axiom called the principle of correspondence. Correspondence. Go away. Go away. Go away. The principle of correspondence. The principle of correspondence states, basically, that patterns in creation repeat themselves. So we may start off with an atom. Atom has a central power force, and around it you have energy centers that circle around the atom. And then next you might have a cell. You have the nucleus of the cell, and around the cell you have these different organs that circle around the center power source. And then you might have a human body that has a central power source, and down it you have power centers, or a lot of people call these the chakras. And then you might have a solar system. And around the solar system, of course, you have planets. And moons around those planets. And then you might have a spiral galaxy. And then after that, you might have a galaxy cluster. See what I'm getting at? The galaxy has a central power source, and a galaxy cluster will have a central power source. So what this states is, what the principle of correspondence means is that even though each step contains similar layouts, it gets more complex along each way. So a cell might be more complex than an atom. In the body, might be more complex than a cell. In a solar system, might be more complex than a body. But the pattern is still there. You can still see the pattern. You have a central power source with centers, energy centers. So the idea then is we may not be able to grasp the idea of who God is. We might not be able to understand the infinity of it, the profundity of who God is. But what we can do is peek through the door a little bit with the understanding that God created man in his own image. So the ancients took this very literally. They took it as gospel. And so the human body became what was known as the symbol of symbols. So it should come to no surprise, well, maybe it is a surprise, I don't know, that almost all occult symbolism, all esoteric symbolism, is based on the form and functions of the body. I'll just let that hang there for a minute. All occult symbolism is based on the form and functions of the body. So, people will always try and say that, the all-seeing eye is evil, or that the Masonic 3 pillars are evil, or the cube as it is used is evil. And the reason this is a problem is because they do not understand that really these are not only based on the form and function of a human, but in extension, these symbols are based on the form and function, so far as we can understand, of the Creator of all things. So this is important to keep in mind. These two things are inseparable in occult symbolism. You don't get one without the other. And this is the trick, and I said this in my last video, is that sometimes when you're dealing with several things, several symbols, there are times when you talk about this one, you're actually talking about all of them at the same time. You have to be able to hold two ideas at once, because I could be talking about this, but really this and this and this and this and this and this are all the same. So let's start breaking down. Let's start learning about symbols with all this in mind. Let's make a symbol together. How about that? So all symbols have a base unit, a base symbol. This is called an archetype. Now, there's a bunch of different kinds of archetypes. And what an archetype is that it's a thing that has a pre-established meaning or base meaning for which other things are added onto. So, like a good archetype would be like a key. Or, you know, a crown. Key, crown. All right? So you kind of understand what I said. So if I put the crown on your head, you instantly know right away what that is. You know when I say if I put the crown on your head, you know what that is. But because we're learning, I want to talk about an archetype that we see every single day, but no one ever thinks twice about. And that is the triangle, the equilateral triangle. Before we go on, though, it's important to understand that there are only so many shapes. And there's only so many archetypes. Just because, let's say, your local barber has a symbol for a logo doesn't necessarily mean that he or she is into the occult. There's only so many shapes, there's only so many objects, and people are going to use them. It doesn't always automatically mean that someone is into esoteric philosophy. However, there is a lot of people who are, and particularly corporations who spend millions and millions and millions of dollars on developing their symbols and their logos. They absolutely and totally know what they're up to. So, back to the triangle. We have the base archetype of a triangle. You'll notice at the bottom there are 2 points down at the bottom. This is called the duad. That's where we get the word dual from. And dual, of course, means 2. You have a point up here at the top. This point up here is called the monad. The M-O-N means 1. So we get the word mono from, like theism. I don't know how to spell it. We'll just erase the evidence. So we get the word monotheism from. So, we're a triangle, 2 points in the bottom, 1 point at top. The bottom portion represents the dual nature of our brain. We have a left brain and we have a right brain. The right brain equals creation. Sometimes called the sacred feminine. And the left brain equals will. Or logic sometimes. And it is sometimes called the sacred masculine. Now, this is what's important to keep in mind. The left brain, masculine side, is symbolically represented as things that are linear in thought. Things like lists, logic, math, science, that sort of thing. The female side is represented by things that aren't, or things that you can't quantify by simply crunching the numbers. So things like art, music, love, creation, that sort of thing. I'll just do get sloppy. I'm using my finger, which is part of the problem. My pen broke on my last episode. So, these two things are at war with each other, typically. The duad is at war. The two is at war. In a book called The Corpus Hermeticum, it states that there's a battle between the two versus the one. The two versus the one. And the one is what we want to prevail, not the two. If the two wins, we suffer. If one wins, we live in harmony. Harmony. Now, there's a lot to this, so I'm going to kind of brush over this very quickly. Basically, what this means is the two equals the base nature of man. It comes from the brain. All symbols come from the brain, or from, the human body. You have the lower brain, the Abdullah down here. Then you have this middle brain called the mammalian brain sometimes. And sometimes it is also called the middle brain. Lizard brain. Lizard brain is right here. Midbrain is here. So this is called base nature, the things that this part of the brain likes. So for example, the lizard brain, it runs your autonomic system. Autonomics. Like I said, I cannot spell. So that's like your heartbeat, your lungs, your circulatory system, that sort of thing. But it also is responsible for sex drive, man, I cannot spell, sex drive, and it's also responsible for the need to feed. The lizard brain is 100% responsible for keeping you alive. So things like, base thought, I guess you could say, base thought represents the things of this world, the things that your body likes to have. There's actually a quick aside here. The Vikings had this idea called the multi-soul, basically stating that you have two different spirits inside of you. You have the spirit of the body, and you had the spirit of God, or the spirit of your real self. So there's two things. You have the stuff that your body likes, and you have the stuff that the real you likes. So again, you have the duad here. So, here's our triangle again. In symbology, the things that are raised towards the top of the page are things that are, or you could say things that are raised to heaven. Things that are raised to heaven are most important. If the equilateral triangle is pointed up, this point, unity, is most important. You have the dualistic natures down at the bottom, but they're brought into harmony with each other, leaning up against each other to create a stable and powerful structure. 2, 1. So, then, what happens if I draw this? What does that mean? What is raised to the top? What is the highest ideal? Duality. Or the dualistic nature of man is raised to the top. So duality equals the spirit or the will of the body, of the physical nature. So the will of the body is raised to the highest ideal, and unity is lowered down. So there's two different words. There's a term for this. So you have an upwards pyramid and you have a downward pyramid. A right side up pyramid is called a stable pyramid, and an upside down pyramid is called the unstable pyramid. Understand? So, what's the big deal about an unstable pyramid? Well, an unstable pyramid, if I was just to give you a little bit of a push, if I just push on you, push, I could make you fall in any direction I wanted. Right? I could make you fall into left brain or right brain modalities. It's mind control. An unstable pyramid means you are easily manipulated because you have the dualistic nature on top, unity on the bottom. You're unbalanced. It could just push you over one direction or the other. And the way this is done is if I make you feel an emotion, I can make you think the way I want, or if I make a logical argument, I can make you go the other way. So this is not ever a compliment. If you're shown this, if the person knows what they're talking about, this isn't a compliment. And this is where you get the Baphomet from. The Baphomet is the goat figure with the horns. Right, and he has the ears kind of poking out over here. I'll put a picture up here so you can see what I mean. But it's a triangle. It's an upside down triangle. That's what this comes from. The dualistic nature of man is raised to the highest ideal, and unity is lowered to earth. So, let's go back to this triangle, the right side up triangle. What happens then if I cut the top of it off? Everyone's seen this. It's on the back of the dollar bill. You start seeing what I mean? So you take this symbol, this base symbol of the unity versus duality, and you start doing things to it. It starts creating a sentence. So what if, okay, well, let's do it this way. Let's back up. Let's do this. And let's put an I in the middle. Boop. Well, what does the I mean? The I is identical to the triangle. The all-seeing I, having one sight, comes from the monad. If you're two-sided, you can't see. But if you're one-sided, you can see. The one eye means being able to see the entire truth. Ever noticed why Odin, the god Odin, had one eye? He gained it. He gave an eye for wisdom. It wasn't so much he lost an eye, but he gained an eye for wisdom. Horus had one eye as well. The one eye means being able to see truth. So, if I put an eye in a triangle, now suddenly you start to see the sentence that I'm trying to make. This is called stacking, by the way. You have your archetype at the bottom. You start throwing symbols in here. Put an eye in here. And then, what happens if I put some wings on this triangle? Wings, or things that fly, high vibration. This comes from this 4 elements. Earth, water, air, and fire. So magic line right here. Things below this line fall to earth. Things above this line fly. Light flies and air flies. So if I put wings on here, suddenly that's a symbol for things that fly. And if you remember that everything in occult symbolism is about consciousness, for which the brain is the symbol. High consciousness equals air and fire. Low consciousness equals water and earth. So if I draw a Baphomet, a little goat down here, duality and things that dwell on the earth are low consciousness. Oops. Low consciousness. So we start adding symbols. So what now? Let's go back to what we were doing before. What happens if I cut the top off? Well, now suddenly we have two different ways of looking at this. Either and this depends on the consciousness of the person who's looking at it. And this is why sometimes symbols get tough, is because sometimes you have to understand the psychology of the person who's creating it. So, because I'm a builder and I want to teach people, I see the symbol as the top of the pyramid being placed back on the base. But if I'm an evil-minded person and I want to kill consciousness in other people, I see this as removing the pyramid, removing the one eye, moving unity from the pyramid. Do you understand? And this is how you read a symbol. It's a sentence. It's a sentence. There's no such thing as me saying this symbol equals evil. There's no such thing as an evil symbol. A symbol is communication. It's communication. You're not going to accidentally summon the devil if you happen to see a Baphomet. So whenever someone comes around and says, oh, look, this symbol is the devil, and that symbol over there is the devil, and look down here, it's the devil. How everything is always the devil, and everything is always about someone trying to murder you. No. No, it's not always that way at all. You have to understand that all of this, remember, comes back to the relationship between you and the great mind itself. Either someone is trying to sever this connection, or someone is trying to build this connection. And actually, I have done this wrong. I should actually say the mind of God is up here. You are down here. And you're trying to climb this ladder to get here. And so, because you and God, because all the symbols are based off of you, which are based off of God, either the person is trying to tell you, I am trying to build this ladder for you, or I'm trying to cut it off, disconnect you from the knowledge of who you really are. So there is no monad, there is no I. There's just duality everywhere. And this is 101. Congratulations. And you'll see the triangle used in various incarnations constantly. Whether it's through a TED Talk or a commercial on your money. It's just everywhere. Like, share, subscribe. All right, my friends, I love you, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take it easy. Bye-bye.